In the lush green hills of the Safari Plains Conservation Area in South Africa, where wild elephant herds roam leisurely, a tiny life was stumbling into the world. Under the brilliant golden sunlight of the African highlands, an elderly female elephant named Zara gave birth a month early. Contrary to all predictions, not one but two elephant calves were born simultaneously. All Safari Plains staff waited anxiously, knowing that premature birth could lead to serious consequences. The first elephant calf was born strong and healthy, a female weighing about 100 kilos as usual, a promising start. But when the second offspring appeared, silence fell over the medical team and elephant care staff. A male incredibly small, he weighed only 20 kilos, 1/5 compared to his sibling. In the world of gray giants, this number was almost synonymous with a death sentence. Marcus Reynolds, the 60-year-old zoo manager with 35 years of experience caring for elephants, stared at the tiny creature lying on the grass with undisguised amazement. His silver hair reflected the sunlight, the wrinkles on his face carved deep by time and long years working under the harsh African sun. His rough and calloused hands that had once bandaged wounds for elephants, rhinos, and countless other wild animals, now trembled as he gently touched the newborn elephant. "In my entire career," he whispered, "I've never seen an elephant newborn so small." Around Marcus, colleagues exchanged glances with pessimistic eyes. They all knew what would happen in nature. Offspring too small, too weak, usually didn't survive. That wasn't cruelty, but the harsh law of survival. And indeed, even Zara, the mother elephant, seemed to understand this. After being exhausted from giving birth, Zara struggled to stand up, gently, pushed the tiny baby away with her trunk, and focused on caring for the healthier offspring. Robert Kincaid, the zoo director, a practical and tough man with 25 years of experience managing wildlife conservation areas, placed his hand on Marcus's shoulder. His face held compassion, but his voice was unwavering. "I'm afraid we have to let nature decide, Marcus. This is the law of nature. We can't intervene in every case." Marcus understood clearly what Robert was saying. That was exactly the principle he had followed and taught to young staff for many years. Don't interfere with natural law. Don't let emotions influence professional decisions. But when Marcus knelt down and looked into the tiny creature's dark eyes, something in his heart stirred. Those eyes, though dim and weak, still shone with a strong will to live, an undeniable tenacity. And in that moment, something within Marcus, perhaps pain from the past or a sense of a second chance, awakened. He slowly stood up, his tall figure becoming more upright, his broad shoulders carrying a new responsibility. "I'll take him home," he declared, his voice without hesitation. "I'll raise him myself." Silence enveloped them. Then whispers began to spread among the staff. Marcus Reynolds, the one who always strictly adhered to the rule of non-interference with nature, who always warned young colleagues about the risk of emotional attachment to animals, was now the one breaking his own rule. Robert looked at Marcus with amazement and skepticism. "Marcus, what are you saying? You know his chances of survival are almost zero. Even if we take him to the best elephant care center in Africa, they would say the same thing." But Marcus had decided. With utmost care, he gently wrapped the small elephant in a soft blanket that had been warmed. Every movement was calculated, every fold of the blanket arranged to provide warmth and support for the tiny, fragile body. Marcus's house was located at the edge of the conservation area, a simple wooden house with a large garden and a big greenhouse behind it that he used to grow African herbs and medicinal plants. That was where he decided to create a temporary home for the elephant calf. In the warm greenhouse, he placed soft blankets, a large mattress, and set up a heating system to maintain stable temperature. The small elephant, whom he named Kai, meaning victory in Swahili, lay motionless on the blanket body temperature, dropping rapidly, breathing weakly. Marcus knew the first 72 hours would decide everything. With knowledge accumulated over years working with wild animals and veterinary medical books, he had studied. Marcus prepared a special milk formula for elephant calves supplemented with coconut oil to provide energy and a special mixture of essential vitamins and minerals. Kai was too weak to nurse, so Marcus had to use a special small tube to deliver milk into his stomach. This was a process requiring absolute precision. Just one small mistake, the liquid could go into the lungs instead of the stomach, causing pneumonia and immediate death. Marcus's hands, accustomed to bandaging wounds for adult elephants weighing tons, now trembled as he inserted the thin tube into Kai's mouth. Every 90 minutes he performed this procedure day and night without rest. The alarm clock rang continuously, and each time he woke up, Marcus's heart raced with fear. He would rush to Kai's side, heart pounding, and breathe a sigh of relief when he saw the tiny chest still rising and falling, though the movements were barely noticeable. "Come on, little warrior," he whispered while gently wiping Kai's small body with a warm cloth, mimicking how a mother elephant would care for her young. "I know you're a strong warrior." On the third day, when the morning sunlight gently shone through the greenhouse roof, Marcus woke up to find Kai lying motionless, body temperature alarmingly low. Panic swept through him. He quickly took Kai into his arms, using his own body heat to warm the elephant calf. He carefully dropped glucose onto Kai's gums and waited, heart pounding. That moment seemed to last forever. The room was so quiet Marcus could hear the clock ticking and his own heartbeat. Then a small movement, a weak moan, came from Kai. It was the most beautiful sound Marcus had ever heard. That was the turning point. From that day forward, Kai gradually became healthier. First, his body temperature stabilized without constant heating. Then he began nursing from a bottle instead of being fed through a tube. Each step forward, however small, was a great victory. When news of Marcus's actions spread throughout the zoo, many colleagues initially showed skepticism, even criticism. They considered it an emotional act, a futile effort, but when Kai survived after 1 week, then 2 weeks, their attitude began to change. Many began to visit, bringing advice, equipment, and support. Among them, Leah Schmidt, a young, passionate zoologist with flaming red hair and bright blue eyes, became Marcus's most important supporter. With updated knowledge about nutrition and elephant calf care, she helped adjust Kai's diet, added essential supplements, and monitored his development. In the first weeks, the relationship between Marcus and Leah was mainly professional. Two people sharing concern about Kai's health condition, discussing diet and care schedules. But gradually, as Kai grew stronger, they began sharing more about themselves. Marcus told about his deceased wife Sarah, a wildlife conservationist who had sacrificed her life in an anti-ivory poaching operation 10 years ago. Leah shared about her childhood dream, to become an advocate for the rights of voiceless creatures. Evening sessions at the greenhouse, when Kai was sleeping soundly, they often sat outside under South Africa's star-filled sky, drinking herbal tea and discussing Kai's future and other conservation projects. The relationship between them, a friendship based on respect and common goals, became a source of strength for both. In quiet moments watching Kai sleep, Marcus sometimes wondered whether his decision was too much interference with nature. But then he remembered how humans had impacted elephants' habitat and fate: ivory poaching, habitat loss, climate change. In that context, his action was not interference with nature, but a humble effort to rebalance what humans had taken from nature. When Kai turned 1 month old, a significant change had occurred. His tiny body began regaining strength. The gray skin that was once wrinkled and sagging now became taut and more vibrant. His eyes, once dim and lifeless in the first days, now brightened with curiosity and playfulness. Each morning, Kai greeted Marcus with a cheerful little trumpet and trunk waving, a gesture that had become their morning ritual. News about the world's smallest elephant began spreading beyond Safari Plains Zoo. Initially, it was just whispers among conservationists and zoo staff. But then a local journalist named Jessica Mbeki, who regularly wrote about environmental issues and wildlife conservation for Cape Times, heard about this story and asked permission to visit Kai. Marcus was initially hesitant. He worried that media attention could cause pressure and stress for Kai during his critical development phase. But Leah convinced him that a positive article could help raise awareness about elephant conditions and might even attract funding for Safari Plains, which was facing financial difficulties and the threat of closure. After much consideration, Marcus agreed to a short interview and photo session with strict conditions about not using flash and maintaining a safe distance from Kai. Jessica complied with all regulations and wrote a profound article focusing not only on Kai's miracle, but also on broader conservation efforts and the difficult situation of African elephants in general. Her article, titled, Little Miracle: The Survival Battle of the World's Smallest Elephant, became an online phenomenon shared millions of times on social media platforms. The image of Kai with his tiny body standing next to Marcus's high boot for size comparison touched readers' hearts worldwide. Soon safari planes became the center of attention. Television stations, journalists, and even documentary filmmakers from National Geographic and BBC all wanted to record Kai's story. Donations from individuals, conservation organizations, and businesses poured in from around the world. Everyone wanted to know more about Kai, wanted to see him, wanted to be part of this miraculous story. Robert Kincaid, who had been skeptical about Marcus's decision, now had to admit that the Kai effect had saved Safari Plane's financial situation. With new funding, they could not only continue operating, but also expand the Elephant Conservation Program, hire more anti-poaching staff, and invest in research and education. But along with fame came new challenges. Marcus worried about the pressure and stress that constant attention could cause Kai. He also feared that Kai was becoming more of a display object than a wild creature in the recovery process. The situation became more complex when Hendrik van der Merwe, a wealthy businessman and owner of an animal entertainment park chain, proposed a large investment in Safari Planes with the condition that Kai would become the main attraction of a new exhibition area where visitors could take photos and interact with him. This proposal caused a heated debate among the zoo management. Robert and some board members supported this idea, believing that the funding could ensure Safari Plane's long-term future. But Marcus and Leah firmly opposed it, arguing that it would harm Kai's natural development process and the ultimate goal, reintegrating him into the wild world. After many tense meetings, Marcus proposed a compromise solution, a remote observation area where visitors could see Kai and other animals through one-way glass and cameras without disturbing or stressing them. This area would be combined with an education center where visitors could learn about conservation work, human impact on elephant habitats, and how everyone could help. Hendrik reluctantly accepted this proposal, and with his financial support, Safari Planes began building the Kai Elephant Education and Conservation Center, a space designed to inspire and educate rather than merely entertain. Meanwhile, Marcus and Leah increasingly worried about Kai's social development. At 3 months old, Kai had become too accustomed to humans and lacked interaction with his own kind. Although he was developing well physically, he needed to learn the social skills and natural behaviors of elephants which humans could not teach. Marcus decided it was time to begin the reintegration process, helping Kai learn to become a real elephant by allowing him to interact with other elephants. This was a difficult decision, as it meant Marcus would gradually withdraw from Kai's daily life, something neither was emotionally ready for. This process was complex and challenging. They built a special area in the zoo where Kai could safely interact with other elephants. This area was carefully designed with safety barriers for Kai, but still allowed interaction through gaps, permitting elephants to smell and touch each other. Initially, the large elephants showed indifference or even hostility toward Kai. He was too small, too different, and carried the scent of humans. Some large bull elephants even showed aggression, forcing Marcus and Leah to quickly remove Kai from the area. The first attempts ended in tears, not only from Kai, but also from Marcus himself, who had to witness the fear and rejection Kai faced. But then something unexpected happened. Duma, an elderly female elephant who had lived in the zoo for many years after being rescued from a circus, began showing interest in Kai. Duma, about 45 years old, had lost several of her offspring to poaching and had never lived in a natural elephant herd. Perhaps because of this, she had special empathy for Kai. Initially, she just stood near the fence, looking at the elephant calf with curiosity. Then she began reaching her trunk through the fence, gently touching Kai. These gestures, though simple, excited Marcus and Leah immensely. These were the first signs of Kai being accepted. They patiently continued the familiarization process each day, extending the time Kai spent near Duma. And finally, after nearly 2 weeks, when they allowed Kai into the same space with Duma, the old elephant gently embraced the elephant calf with her trunk, as if welcoming a long-lost child home. Kai, after a moment of initial hesitation, responded by pressing against Duma, seeking warmth and protection. Marcus stood outside the area, tears streaming down his face. It was a beautiful moment, but also bittersweet. He knew it was time to let go. From now on, Duma would be Kai's mother, teaching him things no human could teach. In the following days and weeks, Marcus had to adjust to his new role, no longer the primary caregiver, but an observer from afar. He still visited Kai daily, but kept his distance, allowing Kai and Duma to build their own bond. It was a painful but necessary process, not only for Kai, but also for Marcus himself. Leah, noticing Marcus's sadness, spent more time with him. They often sat together in the observation room, watching Kai and Duma through one-way glass, taking notes on Kai's progress and discussing the next steps in his reintegration process. In such quiet moments, the bond between Marcus and Leah also deepened. Their friendship, originating from shared concern for Kai, gradually developed into a more complex relationship. They began having dinner together, discussing not only Kai, but also their lives, dreams, and hopes. Marcus, who had closed himself off after his wife's death, gradually opened up more, finding unexpected joy in conversations with Leah. And Leah, who had always admired Marcus for his knowledge and dedication, began seeing him in a new way. In the following months, Kai gradually integrated with the elephant herd under Duma's guidance. He learned to communicate with other elephants through sounds and gestures, learned to find food and water, learned to use his trunk more effectively. Although still much smaller than elephants his age, Kai compensated with his agility and intelligence. Meanwhile, the Kai Elephant Education and Conservation Center had opened and quickly became a popular destination for tourists and students. The educational programs designed by Leah and a team of environmental educators helped raise awareness about the critical situation of African elephants and the importance of conservation work. The most important part of the center was the camera and screen system that allowed visitors to observe Kai and other elephants without disturbing them. Images of Kai, now much larger, but still significantly smaller than elephants his age, along with Duma and gradually with the entire elephant herd, provided a rare glimpse into the complex social world of elephants. With support from international conservation organizations and local universities, Safari Plains also began a long-term research program on elephant behavior, with Kai and Duma as primary subjects. Leah, with her solid academic background, became the head of this project, working with researchers from around the world. A particularly interesting discovery emerged during the research process. Kai seemed to display a special ability in interacting with other animal species. First, researchers noticed he often stood near fences between the elephant area and areas with giraffes, zebras, and even rhinos, as if observing and learning. But then an unexpected event proved this special ability. A young antelope got lost in the elephant area, probably through a gap in the fence. While other elephants reacted with wariness or indifference, Kai gently approached the antelope, carefully extended his trunk, and seemed to be reassuring it. Then Kai led the antelope to the gate where zoo staff were waiting to return it to its safe area. This incident amazed Marcus and Leah. They began conducting controlled experiments, bringing injured or orphaned animals near Kai's area and observing his reactions. Every time, Kai displayed remarkable gentleness and understanding, as if he understood the pain and loneliness other creatures were experiencing. Leah recorded these observations in a scientific paper, proposing the hypothesis that Kai's initial experience as a rejected runt elephant had helped him develop a special kind of emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize and empathize with other creatures' suffering. This paper attracted significant attention in the scientific community and led to a series of new studies on emotional intelligence in elephants and other large animal species. Kai, the tiny elephant who had almost not been born, was now changing how humans understood the animal world. Time passed quickly at Safari Plains. In the following year, Kai became an integral part of zoo life. Not only a tourist attraction, he also became an inspiration for conservationists and wildlife researchers worldwide. Although still much smaller than elephants his age, Kai had developed into a healthy individual with a unique and lively personality. His small body, about half the size of a normal elephant at the same age, allowed him to move with amazing agility and flexibility. He could squeeze through small spaces, climb on terrain that large elephants couldn't access, and perform quick turns that other elephants couldn't do. Kai also developed a special skill in using his trunk. While elephant trunks are typically used mainly for picking leaves, getting water, and social communication, Kai learned to use his trunk with amazing precision. He could pick up small objects like a leaf or a bean, even open simple buttons and locks. He enjoyed playing with water and creating small sprays delighting visitors. But Kai's most outstanding characteristic remained his ability to interact with other animal species. Under Leah's guidance and that of other researchers, Safari Plains developed a special program using Kai as a bridge with injured or orphaned animals newly brought to the zoo. The process worked as follows. When a new animal, especially an injured or frightened young one, was brought to the zoo, it was usually placed in a small area near Kai's residence. After being stabilized by veterinarians, it was allowed to interact with Kai through a safety fence. In most cases, Kai's calm and gentle presence helped soothe these frightened animals, helping them adapt faster to their new environment and respond better to treatment and recovery processes. The Kai's Haven program officially formalized this method and expanded it as part of the recovery procedure at Safari Plains. A special area was built where Kai could safely interact with many different animal species. This area included small spaces designed for different species, with fences and gates allowing controlled interaction. Visitors could observe this process from afar through a sophisticated camera system connected to screens at the Kai Elephant Education and Conservation Center. This experience was not only entertaining but also deeply educational, showing the complexity of the animal world and the importance of compassion and interspecies understanding. Leah, as head of research, wrote a series of scientific papers on this phenomenon, raising many interesting questions about elephants' emotional intelligence and interspecies communication abilities. Her work attracted attention from leading scientists worldwide, leading to many research collaborations and an international conference held at Safari Plains. Marcus, meanwhile, gradually withdrew from daily work at the zoo. At age 61, after 4 decades of service, he felt it was time to let the younger generation like Leah take over. He moved to an advisory role, spending more time at his home on the zoo's edge, gardening and writing memoirs about his life working with wild animals. But although partially retired, Marcus still maintained a regular schedule to visit Kai. Each morning he walked around the zoo, stopping at the elephant area to spend time with Kai. Although Kai had now fully integrated with the elephant herd and had a close relationship with Duma, he always recognized Marcus rushing to the fence when he saw him appear, extending his trunk to touch Marcus's face in an affectionate gesture. The relationship between Marcus and Leah also developed over time. From colleagues to friends, then to something deeper. At age 35, Leah was still much younger than Marcus, but the age difference no longer mattered when they shared so much in common: love for wild animals, dedication to conservation work, and especially special affection for Kai. When Kai turned 2 years old, an important milestone that initially no one thought he could reach, Marcus proposed to Leah on a quiet afternoon by the lake in the conservation area, witnessed by a herd of elephants drinking water. She said yes, and their simple wedding took place 3 months later with a special guest Kai allowed to leave the elephant area under close supervision to attend the ceremony. The Kai Elephant Education and Conservation Center continued to develop, becoming a model for zoos and conservation areas throughout Africa. Their approach, focusing on education, research, and conservation rather than mere entertainment, was adopted and adapted by many places to suit their needs. Safari Plains, once on the brink of bankruptcy, had now developed into a leading conservation and research center with exchange programs with universities and conservation organizations worldwide. Hendrik van der Merwe, who initially only cared about turning Kai into a tourist attraction, also changed his perspective and became a major sponsor for the zoo's conservation programs. But Kai's own future remained an unanswered question. Although he had adapted well to zoo life and integrated with the elephant herd, Kai was still a wild creature. Marcus and Leah always believed the ultimate goal must be to give Kai the opportunity to live the most natural life possible, ideally in the wild environment. But there were several complicating factors. Kai's small size, though much larger now but still only half that of a normal elephant at the same age, could make him vulnerable to predators or aggressive bull elephants in the wild. Moreover, Kai had developed special relationships with many other animal species at Safari Plains, and severing these bonds could cause psychological trauma. After months of consideration and consultation with conservation experts and animal behavior specialists, Marcus and Leah decided that Kai would not be completely released into the wild. Instead, they developed a semi-free plan. Kai and his close elephant herd, including Duma and several other elephants, would be moved to a much larger conservation area where they could live almost naturally, but still receive protection and monitoring. The chosen area was Addo Elephant National Park, a vast conservation area in eastern Cape where elephants and many other wild animal species had been protected for decades. With over 140 kilometers of forest and grassland, this was an ideal habitat for elephants, providing enough space, food, and water. Moving Kai and his close elephant herd to Addo became a major project supported by the South African government and many international conservation organizations. A special area was established within the national park with a small research station allowing scientists to continue monitoring Kai's progress and studying his behavior. On a fresh spring morning, as Marcus sat on his porch reading the newspaper and enjoying his morning coffee, as usual, he heard a familiar sound: elephant trumpeting heavy footsteps. He looked up and saw a convoy of vehicles from the zoo approaching his house, and leading the convoy, walking with confidence and strength, was Kai. The elephant, though still smaller than other elephants, was now a healthy adult elephant. He stopped in front of Marcus's gate, extending his trunk as if greeting an old friend. Leah stepped out of the vehicle, a radiant smile on her face. She didn't need to say much. Marcus understood. This was the farewell visit. Tomorrow, Kai and his elephant herd would be moved to Addo, beginning a new chapter in their lives. Marcus slowly walked to Kai and placed his hand on the elephant's trunk. Without words, they understood each other. In Kai's deep eyes, Marcus saw gratitude, joy, and deep love. And in that moment he knew that every sleepless night, every drop of sweat and tears had been worth it. "Go on, little boy," Marcus whispered, gently stroking Kai's trunk. "It's time for you to find your own path." As the convoy prepared to leave, Leah hugged Marcus tightly. "We have wonderful news," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "The test results are in. A female elephant named Nala in Kai's herd is pregnant, and DNA confirms Kai is the father." Marcus stood there stunned by the news. Kai, the tiny creature no one thought would survive the first night, was now about to have a family of his own. The circle of life which he had boldly intervened in was now continuing exactly as nature intended. 6 months later, Marcus and Leah visited Kai at Addo. Traveling over 800 kilometers from Safari Plains, they arrived on a beautiful morning, warmly welcomed by local researchers. They were taken to the observation station where they could see Kai's elephant herd leisurely wandering on the vast plains. And there beside Kai and Nala was a newborn elephant calf, a small but healthy creature moving awkwardly beside its mother. "She's only 2 weeks old," a researcher explained. "We've named her Hope." Marcus and Leah stood silently, hand in hand, watching the scene before them with deep amazement and emotion. Kai, the tiny elephant Marcus had saved from the brink of death, had now become a father, beginning a new generation. And not only that, he continued his role as peacemaker among species often seen interacting gently with zebras, antelopes, and even rhinos in the conservation area. Researchers at Addo continued the work Leah had begun at Safari Plains, studying elephants' emotional intelligence and interspecies communication abilities. This work led to many breakthrough discoveries about elephant cognition and emotions, contributing to efforts to conserve these magnificent creatures. On the way back to Safari Plains, Marcus and Leah stopped at an observation point looking out over South Africa's vast grasslands. The sun was setting, painting the sky a brilliant orange. Marcus embraced Leah, feeling a peace he had never known in many years. "Sometimes," he whispered, "the most extraordinary thing a person can do is simply never give up hope." And as they stood there under Africa's vast sky, Marcus knew that his true legacy was not just saving one life, but changing how people see the world around them. Through Kai, he had taught thousands of people about the power of compassion, about the value of every life regardless of size or shape. And in an increasingly divided world, that was perhaps the most valuable lesson of all. The story of Kai, the smallest elephant ever known, became a legend told through many generations, inspiring countless people to continue fighting for a world where humans and animals can coexist harmoniously, where every life is cherished, and where hope is never lost.